Tonight, the University of Tasmania vows not to abandon its move into Hobart's CBD. Also tonight, the Australian Defence Force looks to migrants with permanent residency to fill personnel shortages. The world's largest election expected to deliver Indian PM Narendra Modi a third term, and revealing the Matildas lineup for the Paris Olympics. Good evening, Guy Stayner with ABC News. The University of Tasmania insists it's still pushing ahead with its contentious move into Hobart's CBD, even as it grapples with a drop in international students and a need to reduce costs. The university is also contending with uncertainty about where a vital new academic facility will be built and who will fund it.
Shan Yu moved to Hobart from Taiwan to study for a Master's in Business Administration.
I really prefer the weather and the people here because people is really friendly in Tassie.
But she says a proposed federal government cap on the number of international students has her friends worried they won't be able to do the same.
They are pretty worried about if they could apply the visa before the new legislation starts.
The University of Tasmania is tightening its belt ahead of the change.
When we've had a big loss of international students, we've got to manage our costs really carefully to get through that period.
And while it's consulting staff about a hiring pause,
when you're choosing between slowing down recruitment or redundancies, many universities are choosing the redundancy path. We're not.
It says it's still pushing ahead with a move into the Hobart CBD. But we'll listen to staff about whether a new science, technology, engineering and maths building should be at Sandy Bay instead of in the city.
They are the ones best positioned to be able to provide advice as to what the right facilities are. We will completely respect where they get to.
Recently, the government's taken a tougher line on the university's city move, promising during the election to block any sale of the Sandy Bay campus. And last month saying it wants the STEM facility built at Sandy Bay. Today, it was much more circumspect.
We'll do everything that we can to support federal investment into the University of Tasmania for newer and improved facilities to support course offerings, particularly in those areas of workforce demand.
A university with a clouded future. Adam Langenberg, ABC News.
And we'll bring you an extended interview with UTAS Vice-Chancellor Rufus Black on Friday for Stateline. The federal government has embarked on a new course as it tries to address ongoing challenges in attracting and retaining Defence Force personnel. From next month, Defence will begin looking to permanent residents from across the Tasman and later other foreign nationals from close allies.
To address a 4,000-person shortfall in Defence, the government is looking to foreign nationals, permanent residents willing to serve in exchange for a fast track to citizenship, in a recruitment policy march into uncharted territory.
It's a significant crossing of the Rubicon today.
But the government was forced to double back after confusion over exactly who will make up the 350 extra people forecast to join per year as a result.
It'll apply to other Five Eyes countries and permanent residents from any other countries.
The prospect of recruits from any other country forced a clean-up in question time.
In the future, we are having an eye to the Pacific.
It's a dog's breakfast.
The policy's now been clarified. From July, New Zealanders who are permanent residents in Australia and have lived here for more than a year will be able to apply to join the Defence Force. From January, that eligibility will be broadened to include permanent residents from Canada, the United States and United Kingdom, assuming all security checks are met. The opposition labelling the move half-baked.
If you value and respect, truly value and respect the effort of the Australian men and women who wear our uniform, you don't start to cheapen the entry price to get into the Australian Defence Force.
You are going to have to come up and offer them better pay and better conditions.
The mother of a Navy officer who took his own life says deeper cultural change is needed.
People from overseas that, from other countries that might want to enlist here just need to look at our track record.
There's a reason why new recruitment ideas are being embraced. Defence isn't only lagging on the people it needs now, it's also well behind its goal of a permanent 80,000 strong force by 2040. Nicole Hegarty, ABC News, Canberra.
The US says Israel stands ready to push ahead with a plan that could lead to a total ceasefire in Gaza. That's despite far-right Israeli ministers threatening to topple the government if a truce is sealed. Pressure for a breakthrough is growing as details emerge of 4 hostages possibly killed by Israeli forces.
No sign of peace. Just one of more than 50 targets Israel says it struck in the past 24 hours. With Gazan cities and tent camps demolished, desperate Palestinians are pleading for a ceasefire.
Hamas, accept the deal. It's enough.
But far-right members of Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition have threatened to bring down the Israeli government should the deal outlined by US President Joe Biden go ahead.
This is a draft of a reckless deal, and now there is some sort of an attempt to whitewash it.
The Prime Minister is insisting the ceasefire conditions have not changed, but he has doubled down on crushing Hamas.
We have gone a long way to return the hostages, while keeping the war's objectives in mind, primarily the elimination of Hamas.
It appears the Israeli Prime Minister's private commitments to the US are now being forced into the public eye by the White House, which wants an end to this war. It's left Benjamin Netanyahu having to placate his right-wing ministers, now suggesting a temporary truce could start while negotiations continue for a permanent ceasefire, leaving open the possibility the war could also continue.
Despite the conflicting statements from Israel, Joe Biden has told Qatari mediators that Israel stands ready to move forward with the deal.
The only thing standing in the way of an immediate ceasefire today is Hamas.
The Israeli army has revealed 4 more of the hostages kidnapped by Hamas are now confirmed dead. The army believes the 4 were killed while Israel was operating in Khan Yunis, possibly by IDF fire.
If we're not going to negotiate and we'll make a hostage deal, there's no hope for this country.
Every day without a breakthrough, only adding to suffering and heartache. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
640 million votes are being tallied in India tonight in the largest democratic count in history. As counting continues, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is ahead, but the opposition is doing better than expected. Our correspondent Meghna Bali explains why.
Look, the atmosphere is quite subdued here in New Delhi. I'm standing outside Parliament House and the results aren't going quite as expected. Now, the BJP and their allies and Narendra Modi, the PM, do have a clear majority in 300 seats, but the opposition has put up a real fight. Now, exit polls showed that Mr Modi would win this election quite comfortably, but results today have really shown that Congress Party, along with their opposition allies, have put up a real fight. There's an atmosphere of jubilation at Congress headquarters at the moment, not quite as celebratory at BJP headquarters. They've been quite humbled, and that's because they haven't made quite the gains that they thought they were going to make in a state called Uttar Pradesh, which is the largest and most politically significant. They spent a lot of their campaign flexing their economic achievements and their commitment to Hindu revivalism, but that sort of message just didn't work with them. This is a group of people, citizens, that were really hurting with cost of living pressures and rising unemployment. So that message hasn't really come through in the same ways that it did in 2019.
Meghna Bali reporting from Delhi. Immigration Minister Andrew Giles has revealed he's considering cancelling the visa of a Melbourne gangland figure who the Administrative Appeals Tribunal has allowed to stay in the country. Yesterday, the AAT cited a direction from the Immigration Minister in 2023 demanding it consider a foreign national's strength and length of ties to the community, as it reinstated the visa of an associate of the Mokbel crime family, 51-year-old convicted criminal Kevin Farrugia. The direction is soon to be replaced. After revelation, it has led to a number of convicted criminals being permitted to stay in Australia.
I have, over the last week, cancelled 35 visas, and there are more under review. I am aware of the case that the Shadow Minister refers to, which was decided by the AAT yesterday, and it is under consideration in accordance with the national interest.
Greg Lynn says he covered up the deaths of 2 campers in Victoria's high country because he didn't want to lose his career and family. As his police interview was played to a court for the second day, the former Jetstar pilot admitted he'd made some terrible decisions, but said he was not guilty of murder.
This is Greg Lynn repainting his four-wheel drive and removing part of the vehicle as he tries to cover up the deaths of Carol Clay and Russell Hill. Detective Brett Florence was one of the officers who arrested Mr Lynn and interviewed him at the Sale police station. The alleged double killer protested his innocence, using a hand-drawn map to describe a deadly fight at this campsite in Victoria's high country. "I'm innocent of murder. I haven't behaved well. I've made some poor decisions, but murder, as I understand it, I am innocent of," Mr Lynn said. In meticulous detail, the former Jetstar pilot claimed both deaths were accidental, one involving a gunshot to the head and the other a knife to the chest. Mr Lynn said he didn't come forward to police, fearing it would end his aviation career and jeopardise his membership of a sporting club. "I tried to save myself," Mr Lynn said. "It was at a time when I was just finding a really happy place in the world with family, career and my personal life outside of work. This for me was a disaster and I thought, what else can I possibly do?" Greg Lynn said he kept the deaths a secret from his wife Melanie. He said she didn't ask about his camping trip and later on took little notice when he repainted his vehicle in an attempt to throw police off the scent. But Mr Lynn said he knew police were onto him when detectives visited his home and he was snapped by this camera leaving the alleged murder scene. Later that year, he went back to where he dumped the bodies and set fire to what was left. "My intention was to get rid of evidence. It was a horrific thing to have to deal with. I was sick when I was there several times. I steeled myself for it and I worked through the night." Mr Lynn was charged with 2 counts of murder after that police interview. He's pleaded not guilty, with his trial now into its 4th week. Christian Silva, ABC News, Melbourne.
Bruce Lemon is claiming he was denied procedural fairness in his failed defamation case as he prepares to appeal against the decision. Bruce Lemon lodged the defamation case against Network 10 over the interview with Brittany Higgins after his criminal trial for rape was abandoned with no findings against him. Federal Court Judge Michael Lee found that on the balance of probabilities, he did rape Ms Higgins, proving 10's truth defence. But Mr Lemon's notice of appeal says Justice Lee did not apply the correct standard of proof in arriving at the decision. No date has been set for the appeal. Australia has given the Matildas a massive send-off for the Paris Olympics, with tens of thousands turning out to cheer them on in Sydney. The 2-goal win over China had the record-breaking crowd at Stadium Australia ecstatic.
A record crowd of almost 77,000 people turned up to the Olympic Stadium to farewell Australia's favourite team and a treasured veteran.
Just listen to this ovation.
Lydia Williams was playing her 105th and likely last game for the Matildas. Tennis legend Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley presented the Noongar keeper with a buka, a cloak made from kangaroo skins.
Thank you, everyone.
Australia and China played out a 0-0 first half before captain Steph Catley delivered a pinpoint free kick.
It's a great ball, it's a great header. And it's Claire Wheeler.
1-0 became 2-0 when Hayley Rasso finished a beautifully weighted through ball from Courtney Vine.
Who accelerates and scores. And the Matildas are heading to Paris in style.
And this morning, it became official for Tony Gustafsson's squad of 18.
It's been an emotional week, of course.
But right now, today, I feel very excited.
The Olympics is a really, really difficult tournament. It's quick turnarounds, straight off the bat in the groups you're playing against, some of the top teams in the world.
Steph Catley will captain an experienced squad. She's one of 8 Matildas going to their 3rd Olympic Games. 6 will be going to their 2nd, while last night's goal scorer, Claire Wheeler, is one of 4 players who'll be making their Olympic debut. This is a team Australia will be hoping can break the Matildas' duck at major tournaments. After finishing 4th at the World Cup and the last Olympic Games, they now have a great opportunity to finish on the podium.
We know we're not the top-ranked teams. We're ranked 9 out of 12 teams in this tournament if you look at world ranking. We have a lot of injury issues, as you know, and as of late.
The obvious admission is Sam Kerr. While Katrina Gorry has been selected, she hasn't played since March due to a syndesmosis injury. It's all smiles now, then hard work before the first game against Germany in Marseille. David Mark, ABC News, Sydney.
P&O cruises will be shut down in Australia from next year. P&O will be folded into the brand of parent company Carnival and 2 ships will be rebadged. But Pacific Explorer cruises will be cancelled from next March and passengers will receive refunds. Carnival's CEO says the decision was made because of the South Pacific's small population and higher operating costs. The company, which has operated in Australia for 90 years, expects a number of job cuts in head office, but says it will redeploy most staff. Some remote Northern Territory communities have been barred from legally accessing takeaway alcohol for up to half a century. But that could soon change, with the NT government announcing its roadmap for alcohol management plans across the Territory. It's a move some Indigenous leaders fear will only increase addiction levels.
It's been 15 months since alcohol-fuelled crime reached crisis levels in Central Australia. The NT government, under pressure from the Commonwealth, reinstated liquor bans in all communities and town camps, 6 months after intervention-era laws were allowed to lapse.
These are complex problems and they require a full solution.
And now, more than a year on, the government has revealed its roadmap for rolling out alcohol management plans across the Territory, giving communities which have been dry for up to 50 years the chance to legally access takeaway alcohol.
We've got to get away from this paternalistic view of alcohol and saying to communities you just cannot have it.
The NT government has put out a tender for private consultants to help communities develop their management plans. More than 100 remote communities and homelands have registered interest, with about 30 moving to the development stage.
We need people to learn to live with alcohol.
Beswick is one of the NT's 8 remote communities already operating a social club. Leaders say it's helped residents learn to drink responsibly and stopped them from taking risky trips to major centres to buy alcohol.
It was mainly the deaths. People just started coming back in a casket.
But other Indigenous leaders fear communities aren't ready for the rivers of grog to return.
Putting remote alcohol places on remote communities is adding more fuel to the fire. It's an addiction and it's a feel-good because the person's been kicked in the guts all his life and the only way out of it is alcohol.
Mixed feelings on a hot topic in the Territory's debates. Charmaine Allison, ABC News, Alice Springs.
Just days after Donald Trump's historic conviction, President Joe Biden's son is now on trial. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty to allegations he lied when buying a gun in 2018. A jury has been sworn in to hear the case, which could prove a distraction as his father campaigns for re-election. North America correspondent Barbara Miller was at the court in Wilmington, Delaware.
A First Lady and a mum. Jill Biden arrives at court to support her stepson. Hunter Biden faces 3 charges stemming from the purchase of a gun in 2018. It's alleged he lied when he told the licensed dealer he wasn't addicted to drugs. The defendant's troubled past is no secret.
Smoking crack and drinking vodka exclusively.
But now details of his crack cocaine use and turbulent personal life, including a love affair with his dead brother's widow, will be aired in court. Wilmington is the Bidens' hometown, and potential jurors were asked if they could be impartial before being sworn in. In a rare statement on the case, Joe Biden said, "As the president, I don't and won't comment on pending federal cases. But as a dad, I have boundless love for my son, confidence in him and respect for his strength."
The personal drama is playing out in the political spotlight. Hunter Biden is not charged with election interference. He's not running for office, but the timing of this case so soon after Donald Trump's conviction couldn't be worse for his father's re-election campaign.
Last week, Joe Biden marked the anniversary of his son Beau's death, a reminder of the personal tragedies the family has endured. If convicted on all charges, the president's surviving son faces up to 25 years in jail. There's much more at stake here for Joe Biden than just a presidential election. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Wilmington, Delaware.
The Australian dollar moved a little higher today ahead of tomorrow's March quarter GDP release. Here's Alan Kohler.
The consensus forecast for economic growth in the March quarter due out tomorrow is 1.2% for the year, 0.2% for the quarter. Not that economists who have to make these forecasts agree on a consensus, of course. Someone just averages all the ways in which they disagree. ANZ and NAB both think in the quarter growth will be 0 and 1% for the year, so they reckon it'll be an almost recession. In any case, GDP growth will be less than half population growth, extending Australia's long per-person recession into a second year. The Aussie dollar snuck up a few points to 66.7 US cents, but only because the US dollar fell. The share market fell 0.4% because resources stocks were sold off after iron ore and oil prices fell by quite a lot last night. Global markets didn't do much. Small moves in New York last night and Asia today, except Mexico, where the main share index fell more than 6% after the landslide victory of the country's first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. Apparently, investors and business people are worried that her party, Moderna, will spend more money and take more control of the economy. Now, in other Mexican news, the Aussie fast food chain Guzman y Gomez has decided to float on the ASX. The number of their restaurants has been growing at 15% a year compound, and they're expanding into Singapore, Japan and the US. The float will be a spicy $2.2 billion. Finally, the ABS released data on spending on exploration today. Exploration for minerals fell 2%, but for oil and gas, it increased 10% in the quarter and 48% over 12 months. I'm just surprised anyone's still looking for fossil fuels at all these days. And that's finance.
Alex de Minaur has upset world number 5 Daniil Medvedev to become the first Australian man to reach the quarter-finals at the French Open since Leighton Hewitt 20 years ago. De Minaur says a vocal young fan has become his lucky charm and will be courtside again when he takes on German Alexander Zverev.
It's the feel-good story of Roland Garros. An enthusiastic supporter of Alex de Minaur in his previous match, French fan Paul was back, riding every point like his life depended on it. Show his gratitude.
He's managed a miracle. I might have to get him on tour week in and week out. I could hear him after every single point, and it's a distinctive voice.
Honestly, it was amazing, and now I really hope you'll win. It was incredible.
On the clay, I needed hot, lively conditions, but this week, this whole tournament has proven otherwise.
Demon is likely to be a crowd favourite when he faces 4th seed Alexander Zverev. The German is coming off 2 gruelling 5-set wins.
I've played a total of 8.5 hours over the last 3 days, so I need to recover.
By his side, a maiden Grand Slam semi-final is in his sights. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
Dustin Martin's 300th game celebrations have been put on ice, with the Richmond veteran ruled out of Thursday night's match against Adelaide. Illness means the 3-time premiership player will need to wait another week to become just the 7th Tiger to reach the milestone.
Sitting on 299 games, Dustin Martin was a notable absence from Tigers training.
He's actually ill today, so that's taken that out of our hands.
With 3 premierships, 3 Norm Smith medals, 4 All-Australians and 1 Brownlow under the belt, Dusty looks set to add 300 games to his resume in Adelaide against the Crows. But the 5-day break proved tricky for the injury-hit Tigers.
The silver lining to that is the fact that he'll get to play his 300th in front of our crowd against the Hawks next week.
In some good news on the injury front, trio Shea Bolton, Tim Taranto and Dion Prestia are available and others are nearing a return.
Tom and Jacob Hopper are getting closer. They're in almost full training, so just going to make a decision on whether they play before the bye or after that.
Max King will need to pass a fitness test on Thursday to make himself eligible for Saints selection this week. The 23-year-old hoping to be available ahead of their clash against the Suns.
I think he's still a little bit ginger, but no structural damage or anything like that. So I think, we'll just see how he pulls up as the days go on.
In Brisbane, Hugh McCluggage will remain a Lion, with the co-vice captain now locked in through 2031. The 26-year-old resisting big offers from rival clubs.
It's been a great ride, and I still think that there's plenty of good times left.
The Harbour City's 2 sides have made similar moves in locking up talent. Will Hayward signing a 5-year extension with the ladder-leading Swans, and Sam Taylor tying his long-term future to the Giants until the end of 2032.
It's almost as though if you're not offering a long-term contract for key players such as Sam, then you're probably not securing their signatures.
Fraser Fife, ABC News.
Nathan Buckley has expressed interest in becoming the inaugural Tasmania Devils coach. The 51-year-old stepped down as coach of Collingwood in 2021 after 10 seasons and a grand final with the Magpies in 2018. He's previously denied any interest in returning to coaching and has spent the past 2 years working in the media. But he's told Fox Footy he would consider coaching the Devils.
It's something that I would like to have a look at and to learn more about, to understand whether or not there was, I suppose, a synergy there that was for the club's benefit.
South Africa has started its men's T20 World Cup campaign with a 6-wicket win over Sri Lanka in New York. Sri Lanka was dismissed for just 77, its lowest ever total in a T20 international. The Proteas reached the victory target with more than 3 overs to spare. In Guyana, Afghanistan thrashed World Cup debutant Uganda by 125 runs. To the weather, and Anne Wilson sent in this photo of dawn from the CWA house at Hawley Beach. And we're getting quite a few photos from the north coast of late. After about 36 hours of rain in St Helens, the rain finally cleared and enabled the town to top the state today with 19 degrees. 17s were scattered all over the island, including in Launceston, Devonport, Burnie and in Hobart. It was 15 degrees in Strawn. The rain continued along the east coast last night, with St Helens having 27 millimetres for the 24 hours to 9 a.m, giving the town 42 millimetres for the total rain event. 19 fell on Kunani Mount Wellington. The satellite image shows Tasmania virtually surrounded by cloud. Tomorrow, a front will pass harmlessly to our south as a high in the Bight extends a ridge over Tasmania, reducing our winds. Across the country tomorrow, showers in Sydney and Canberra, Melbourne cloudy and 15 degrees, Adelaide 17, Brisbane 22. Back home it will be mainly fine apart from some showers about the west, south and the Furneaux Islands. There's just a medium chance of showers about the west. Any fall should be less than a millimetre, provided you're not climbing Mount Reid. It will be fine and 17 degrees across the northwest and in Launceston. Heading east, 15 degrees all the way down the coast, Oatlands 13, and Hobart's heading for a top of 15 after a low of 10. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 7:33. On coastal waters, there'll be southwesterly winds of 15 to 25 knots, shifting southeasterly about the northeast during the day. There are no wind warnings, but there is a minor flood warning for the South Esk River. Thursday, there'll be light showers about the far southeast and Bass Strait Islands. Friday, isolated showers about the east and Bass Strait Islands. And looking ahead, it should be fine on Saturday, cooler on Sunday with the chance of a shower in Hobart. And that's it for this evening's program. Up next is Sarah Ferguson. See you tomorrow.